We are in the Ruhr Valley of Germany, in Winterberg, one of 4 sliding tracks in the country, and it is the first of our World Cup stops here in Europe as we rush headlong towards Sochi 2014. Ready for the second and deciding heat of the 4th two-man bobsleigh World Cup of the season. I'm Martin Haven. Sitting alongside me in the booth is Kurt Tomasevich, the US brakeman. And Kurt, this Winterberg track has produced some entertaining races, and it looks like we may have another one on our hands.
Yeah, we expected the Germans to do well on this track, and Friedrich sitting in 3rd place right now after the first run. Didn't disappoint us, has a great start, you know, something that the Germans had been missing a little bit, so it's, you know, it's kind of scary to see the Germans getting back on pace.
Well, Francesco Friedrich, the world champion in two-man, ahead of him, after a great first run, Corey Buckner of the USA. He's already been on the podium this season, 2nd place after the first of our 2 heats. He and Chuck Berkeley could really put the cat among the pigeons. They got a great medal shot here.
Yeah, Chuck and Corey make a great team together, have a great sled setup as well.
But fast starts in Winterberg often equals race-winning opportunities. Bert Hefty and Alex Baumann put in the fastest starts that we've seen from them this season. They outpaced almost everybody in the field, and the Swiss drove into the lead on a track at which he already has a number of two-man race victories. And so far, no need in Hefty's mind for him to roll the sled out of the final corner, the bobsleigh equivalent of dipping for the line in Winterberg. 3,300s ahead of what is going to be a pretty close battle. And Kurt, that's what we often come to expect in Winterberg. Hundreds of a second between sleds. We've got less than 2/10 from 2nd down to 8th. The medals are up for grabs. Anybody makes a mistake, they're out of it.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of shuffling around because some of the differences are 100, 300s, 600s, 400s. So there's going to be a lot of sleds that aren't in their final position yet.
So what about the key areas on this track? It's not long, only 1,300 meters. It's not steep either.
Yeah, the first half of the track is very flat compared to most tracks. And I say flat, although you're still going downhill. One trick to this track right here is the kink. It's a new curve that they put into the track, so it doesn't actually count as curve 1 yet. So we call it the kink or curve 0, and that's where a lot of sleds we saw in the first heat of the race made a couple mistakes, and it cost them. You just can't come back from a tough run. So again, we're still going in a very flat part of the section here from curve 3, 4, and now into curve 5, and you start to pick up a little speed here. Curve 6 and into Kreisel. Kreisel is a big left-hand curve, almost all the way around where you cross underneath the track. Curve 8, and then we're going to see a lot of highlights or lowlights of curve 9, 10. Now, curve 9, 10 is technically 2 curves, but most pilots negotiate it as 1 curve. And into the labyrinth. Curves 11, 12, and 13, a series of lefts and rights. And then into the final curve, which is uphill, curve 14. That track's going to get really bumpy, and sometimes curve 14 is hard to negotiate as well.
Well, all sorts of traps here on this very flat track. Good training, perhaps, for the Sochi Olympic track. And Yevgeny Pashkov, the new Russian World Cup rookie, is in the top 20 at his first attempt. Fastest 20 of 27 sleds from the first heat go in reverse order, 20 down to 1 for the medals. Pashkov, with veteran brakeman Dmitry Stepushkin, nursing him through these first steps. They're already in the top 20.
Pashkov, a young pilot, but again, with a very experienced push athlete, Dmitry Stepushkin, a 5:29 in the first heat, 5:32 here, so they slow down just a little bit.
Now the sun is dropping. We've had rain this morning, but none this afternoon. It's still very mild, plus 4 or 5 degrees. Ice temperature hovering a little below freezing. So how is the track going to change, I wonder, during these 20 sleds and their runs down the track?
That is a great question. It's always interesting to see how the weather plays a factor in the ice conditions. You know, it's not rainy, but it's very humid, very wet, misty. The sun has gone down, so it's going to get colder, so the ice is going to get a little bit harder, but at the same time, it's going to get a little chewed up, I guess is the way to describe it. So it's going to get bumpy, and it might be a tough thing for some of the pilots to handle.
We can See a lot of marks in the track from where it has been soft. It doesn't have to be soft very deep down. The ice is a good 3 or 4 inches thick, but the refrigerating pipes run through the concrete walls below. It takes a while to preserve the surface, and of course, if you really bump up the refrigeration, all that happens is the moisture frosts onto it. And so the runners stick to the track the way your hand does to the freezer section of your fridge at home when that gets frosty, and that slows you down even worse than a soft track.
Yeah, you can see from curve 13, 14, you can see how bumpy the track is. You see the pilot, his head whips back and forth a little bit. Yeah, it's not like an indoor winter sport where you can control the air temperature and run a Zamboni over the ice. It's just part of the nature of the beast.
There is Pashkov with his helmet off. Stepushkin yet to take his off. 5:21 first heat, 57:21 rather, 57:20 second heat. Very consistent. What about Nikolai Strate? First World Cup start for him this season. Didn't do the North American run. Florian Krasuin behind him in this Romanian sled. And again, talk about tiny nations with tiny teams. Romania seem to have almost more people on the ice than they have in their team competing in bobsleigh and in skeleton.
Yeah, it was good to see Estrada get a second run, had to battle it out. 5:33 start this heat. It's 100th faster than they were in the first heat.
And again, a 5:30-something start isn't going to worry the quickest guys, but it's all about getting points and positions in the overall season's rankings, because if you go to Sochi for the games, it decides where your start draw is. And Sochi might be mild, and it might have deteriorating ice. So, you know, the better start draw is always going to be an advantage.
Yeah, so rule of thumb, the first off will have the best ice, unless it is snowing, kind of become the snowplow of the track, but the Sochi track is mostly covered, so the snow shouldn't be a factor, rain shouldn't be a factor. So the higher the rankings you can be, the better off you should be positioned to do well at the games.
1900s behind, tied at the start with Pashkov. They were only 100th apart after the first heat. He's 1500s behind after the second. So that shows that Pashkov has learnt, tidied up his errors, and made improvements in that second run.
If there's just a little bit of relief when you qualify for the second run, knowing that the worst you can finish is 20th. No matter how bad he does, he's not going to fall back, and so he's already beaten 7 sleds, no matter how bad the second run is.
Yeah.
Has a little trouble with the kink there, sends the sled back and forth like a pendulum. And of course, we're going to see this over and over. Curve 13 into 14, that tap on his right side. It's going to be almost impossible for a sled to not take that tap, but keeping the sled straight is key.
We are in a very popular holiday resort for Dutch skiing fans. Normally when it's snowy, obviously that works a little better than at the moment. It's laughingly known as the Dutch Alps here. One of the spectators pointing out some problem he sees with the track in front. The BSC Winterberg workers in their red and black jackets. Track workers here, Bob and Schlittensport Club Winterberg. This brand new start area built now about, I guess, 7 or 8 years ago. They've got a new outrun at the finish as well for the World Championships next year. The Dutch cheering on Ivo de Bruin and Yannick Greiner. They made the second heat. The historical #1 for the Netherlands did not. Edwin van Kalker had a horrible time in the first heat. 5:27 get away from them, not quite as quick as their first run.
Yeah, again, they're looking for a top 10 finish here. Edwin did not get that top 10 here, definitely in 2-man. They're going to have another chance in 4-man, of course, but Ivo is focused only on 2-man. Today's his day. He's really looking to qualify and meet that national qualification mark for the Olympics by getting a top 10 here. He's got a long way to go. But first step is staying ahead of Nikolai Estrada and Evgeny Pashkov.
Well, he was only 400s in front of current leader Pashkov from the first heat. He's gone from 900s to 700s up as he drops below us. Down into this labyrinth that ends the run. Fast series of corners that flick left and right and left.
Extending that lead a little bit here. He should cross the line. Well, lost it a little bit getting back. His lead was 9, 8, 7, 7, and then back up to 8, and then dropped to 6. So a little bit back and forth, but bottom line is he crossed the line in first place for now.
Yep, you get the one finger there, and that's what you need. First place, that means you didn't give anything up.
And he's looking forward. He's only 600ths behind Rico Peter from the Swiss team ahead of him, who's only 300ths ahead of the next spot. So, you know, there could be some shuffling around that happens.
And despite a huge gap from first and second, that's exactly what we expect in this Winterberg race. Lots of close runs. It is Ivo de Bruyne then of the Netherlands, who is our current leader. Yevgeny Pashkov of Russia in second. Nikolai Estrati of Romania lies in third. Well, de Bruyne on the right. Only in his first full year of World Cup competition. Next up at the top of the track is Switzerland's Rico Peter. Peter with Thomas Amrine. Started 5:23.
Very quick load by Thomas into the back of that sled. You know, trying to be quick and gentle at the same time is not easy. You can see Rico had a little hard time controlling that kink. That could have been because of how quickly Thomas jumped into the back of that sled. But he's 0.08 of a second ahead right now. Negotiates curve 4 and into 5 fairly well.
0.03 of a second, the gap is creeping down. It's 93 kilometers out of the Kreisel.
This is going to be very close. Seems to be driving well, holding that 0.03 of a second lead. This will tell a lot. 9:10.
Well, Rico Peter didn't go to North America, so he's been racing in Europa Cup, the second tier of competition here in Europe. 1:30, good speed at the bottom, very good speed at the bottom, and he tucks his head under the cowling as he takes the lead by 0.17.
Yeah, had an awesome bottom half of the track. Right after Kreisel, handled curve 8, and that tricky curve 9:10, about as good as we've seen so far in this race. And that showed at the bottom of the track with speed over 130 kilometers an hour.
Well, the track is holding up. He was a quarter second better than in his first heat, and that's a big difference.
Yeah, again, it might be because the temperature is dropping, the sun has gone down, but curve 4, 5 here, very smooth. And here as he crosses the finish line, long exit out of 14. Ducks his head there, try to shave just a little bit of time.
Yep. Well, saves rolling it off the corner. That's the other option, is to not steer down off the corner at all and just carry the speed round onto the wall and risk the crash after the line.
Well, maybe that was why he was ducking his head.
Yeah, maybe so. Loic Cosdergue of France now, based at the La Plagne track. And this young man started his first World Cup race only last year. You can see the holes in the back of his suit where he was spiked by Roman Heinrich, his brakeman behind. In the first heat, they didn't have a comfortable load. Let's see if they can tidy it up.
Yeah, right here was one of their major mistakes as he jumped into the sled. Now he still has that, I'd say it's a bad habit when a brakeman jumps into the sled and loads one arm and then the other. You know, you need to be very symmetric to come into the sled because you want the sled to continue to go straight. And any side movement can cause the back of the sled to skid a little bit, but you know, good start time, good start velocity, and that's got him into the lead so far.
Well, Romain, the brakeman, is very aware that he's almost as wide as he is tall. He has got very big shoulders to try and squeeze in, and he's trying to get in a little bit sideways to make it work quickly. But it's not a detrimental effect. They're still in the lead, though, easing away from Rico Peter.
Yeah, but this is going to be tricky here at the bottom because Rico had such a good bottom part of the track. It'll be interesting to see if that 0.13 of a second extends.
Sled built by Bruno Mijon. He's not officially the French coach. 1:29.5. He's impressed me with a few good runs last year, Loic Cosdergue, and that was another good one. Neat and tidy, no major errors.
It actually extends his lead over Rico Peter to 0.12 of a second.
Yeah, that's a good run from the Frenchman. Canal Plus, the French network are here. They cover the Olympic Games and doing a little bit of pre-Olympic work, getting some profile work on these guys, and that's fantastic. You know, French bobsleigh basically stopped nearly a decade ago.
Here again, a very good 9:10, doesn't send the sled into a skid, but very bumpy coming through there. You can see the ice causing the sled to jump around a little bit. Maybe slight mistake coming out of 13 into 14. You can see the front hits the wall before the back end of the sled.
Cosdergue only been driving for 3 years. There he is. And every time he comes down the ice, learns a little bit more. Coach Pierre Luders means we have a Russian sled on the ice. The first of the Russians in the top 20. Second of the Russians, rather. Alexander Kazyanov with Max Belugin behind him.
they're looking to qualify 3 sleds on their home track for the Olympics, and only 3 countries get 3 sleds. So they're going to have to do better than being in 20th place and 15th place. Yeah. So they're looking to move up. Kazanov, right now the USA 2 sled, or excuse me, the Russia 2 sled.
Kazanov, not the greatest 2-man driver, but he's a much better 4-man driver. He's been in the medals, giving his team leader, Alexander Zhukov, a run for his money on a number of World Cup occasions in 4-man.
See the back end of the sled coming up a little high in curve 6, as well as to the entrance of curve 7, which is Kreisel. A little bit of a skid there, just losing a little bit of time here and there. Now he's 900ths of a second behind.
Yeah, a little uncomfortable down at the bottom of the track as well. Just didn't really get the line right and paying for it. Little skids here and there.
Yeah, I'll be surprised if his speed is 129. That's not bad speed, but
what's he using? A Valna sled, one of the Austrian-built sleds.
Falls back 2 positions. That keeps the young French team in the lead.
Well, listen, he's Russia 2 going into the games in Russia in 36, 37 days. He's been beaten by a French rookie.
Yep.
That's tough.
Yeah, it's easy to see where the Russia is putting their money, and that's in Zhukov right now, putting all their the coins in his pocket, trying to get him to be the medal, because Kazanov is not going to be in medal contention, let alone, if he qualifies for the Olympics right now. It's not looking really bright.
Not looking guaranteed, nothing set for sure. Lloyd Costeg of France leads with our first half dozen sleds down, 14 to go here in Winterberg. Top of the track, Winterberg, Germany, Martin Haven, and US Olympian Kurt Tomasevich alongside me. Watching the second and deciding heat of the men's 2-man bobsleigh, Simone Bertazzo and Francesco Costa with this Ferrari, yes, that Ferrari-built sled, racing for Italy.
The first heat centric, Francesco and Simone pushed a 5:23. Now a 5:24 in this heat, so relatively consistent there.
Not the fastest of starts, but Simone and Francesco get in without upsetting the sled, and that's all part of the equation as well.
Simone, a pretty good driver. That's some great start velocity. If they were that close at the start, and now they're 900ths of a second ahead.
2007 Worlds with Sam Red, Simone Bertazzo took the bronze medal in the 2-man. He's also medaled in the Worlds as a 4-man driver.
Slowly losing that lead now. It's down to 600 seconds and 100 behind now.
100 behind and a little rocky there. The gap will only grow surely. What's the Ferrari got in terms of speed at the bottom? We've seen high 29s and 130s. 129 flat, not going to be enough to put him in the lead. 400s back becomes 800s back.
Yeah, it's going to be a good rivalry between the French and Italians here, battling for, a little behind top 10 finishes, I guess, but at the same time, those countries right next to each other both have tracks where they can try to work on and practice.
Well, 500ths of a second between them in the first heat, and the French have overturned that and go 800s up.
Here's where we had a little bit of a mistake where the French did not. Curve 9-10, not much, but sled was just a not straight coming into curve 11.
Well, we had a brand new Italian in the first heat. He didn't make a second run, but it shows that the Italians have got a little bit of a development program now, starting to sprout green shoots. Women in Italian bobsleigh in tomorrow's women's race as well, so that's going to be a big step forward for their programs. Now, what about the Latvians? Oskars Melbardis, Daumas Trīskins, Latvia won, outraced by Oskars Kibas-Manis, their teammate in the first heat. Yeah, so that's the first job, isn't it? Beat your teammates.
Yeah, I would say this was a little bit of a surprise, seeing these guys not in the top 10. They're finishing in 13th place after the first heat, at least. But they had the fastest starter at a 5:08. That's their strong point. Their key to success right here is in the first 50 meters.
Well, the start is always going to be important here in Winterberg, as it is in Sochi. 5:09, just a fraction away.
Yeah, he made a few mistakes at the top of the track in the first heat that he can't do in the second heat if he wants to move up at all.
Well, you can fire the sled off the top of the track, but if you can't handle the speed, you're always going to be losing out all the way down. Avoids the little bump on the wall there that he had in the first run.
Yeah, 4,600ths of a second ahead now.
Now, I wonder, we talked about the track changing. Is it now suiting his runner choice much more, maybe, than it did when it was earlier on in the afternoon?
That's a good point, too. Now, he's not extending his lead. Ooh, big skid, big hit coming out of curve 9 and into 11. Ooh, that's not going to help.
Still 3,400s up on the French, though.
And Bobsleigh, you know, he had a lead of 4,600s at one point, now down to only 2,400s in a second. So some major mistakes on the bottom, but because of that great start, he was able to at least maintain 13th position, but I know he'd like to move up.
Well, listen, he started 2/10 quicker than the French, which means he should have been 6/10 faster down the track. He was only 700s quicker than the French through the run, including the start.
Yeah, that's surprising. You're referring to that kind of rule of 3, where you can take your start difference and multiply by 3 to get the bottom time difference, but certainly doesn't play a factor of driving ability, and had a really hard time here between curves 9, 10, and into 11.
Yeah, backing it in there, motorcycle style, and you do that on a motorbike to slow it down. Not what you want in a bobsleigh. No wonder he's walking around looking a little bit disconsolate. Well, the French are out of the leader's box, and the Latvians are in for the moment, but which Latvian sled will be in the lead? Will it be this man, Oskars Viessmann, with Ferris Leiboms behind him? New young brakeman, and very young as well.
And very athletic. A 5:10 start time, was the 3rd fastest in the first heat. Bardis dropped 100 to a 5:09, so if Viessmann can improve 100th, they've tied their countrymen with the fastest start so far.
Imagine what this team will be like when they've had a year pushing together and another couple of years of driving for Viessmann, who's only in his 2nd season as a driver last year, his 3rd this year.
Yeah, predicting way ahead. It wouldn't be surprised me if there were a couple Latvian flags being raised in Korea.
Yeah, no kidding. Unless the Koreans build a track without a start area, the Latvians are going to be competitive.
Their lead just diminished to 100th of a second now behind their teammate. But you have to remember that Bardis had a pretty much horrific bottom half of the track, so Viessmann could turn that back into a lead here. Although he's 600s back now. It'll be interesting to see how he handles 9, 10, 11. Much better than his teammates.
He was facing forward for a start, not looking over the side of the cowling, so that's got to be an improvement. 300s, 129.5, quicker than the other Latvian sleds.
It's going to be green, I believe.
Yes. Yep. Wow, 56.69, 100th of a second quicker than his teammate. Take that. Chalk it up on the board. 100th quicker is quicker.
Very consistent. Yeah. 100th difference at the start, 100th difference at the bottom. But you know, battling for 12th place is not where Bardis needs to be. He needs to be a little more consistent with his drive and move up. You know, he's been used to battling for medals. Now he's sitting in 2nd place. Look like he's going to finish not in the top 10.
Well, again, worth pointing out with both these guys, in the last Olympics, they were brakemen and spectators. Now they're drivers. But it is Latvia 1-2 as we have 10 to go here in Winterberg. Well, Latvia 1-2, but Kurt Tomasevich, I think you really hit the nail on the head there. Oskar Viessmann looks happy, but on the left with the darker hair, the longer hair, Oskars Bardis can't be. To be battling with his teammate is one thing and losing, but to be down in 10th, 11th, 12th, that shows he's struggling to find some form. Could it be that they're playing with kit? I mean, from your viewpoint of the US team, there's still all those experiments going on, right?
Could be. You know, at the same time, though, this is just a different track than what we've been used to so far this season. You know, Lake Placid, where the last race was held, that's, you know, a very fast track with a lot of curves that come at you very quickly. You know, here it's a very slow track where you don't reach top speeds and not a lot of pressure on a lot of curves. So some of the drivers don't have that same type of feeling as they would on a track in Lake Placid or Park City or even Calgary.
On the other hand, it is a massive starters track, and that should give them a big advantage to carry down. It does give them a big advantage. They just seem to be dropping it all the way down the track. So.
Yeah, they used their advantage halfway through the track with, again, that lead was close to half a second, but just couldn't hold it on the bottom half.
This is always good to see the little bits behind the scenes that don't often make it into the shows. You can see Marco Hubenbecker there really psyching himself up. Remember the time they used to have the Latvians with smelling salts before they went off, just to really get themselves ramped up, get that blood flow to the brain.
Yep, this is where emotion comes into play. Any kind of emotion you can get to get that adrenaline flowing. If the crowd's screaming, yelling, some athletes, get angry and mad. Some athletes, look calm and collected, but whatever it is, it's just trying to build all this potential energy and let it out in one big burst that lasts for about 4 or 5 seconds in the first 50 meters.
Yeah, it's that dual life you have to lead as a driver like Max Arndt. Welcome back to Winterberg in Germany, second and deciding heat of the men's two-man bobsleigh race. Martin Haven and US Olympian Kurt Tomasevich in the booth calling the action for you. 10 to go, and disappointingly 10th after the first heat for him. Max Arndt with Marco Hubenbecker for only the 20th start time, Kurt. I mean, that alone is worth a column or two.
Yeah. Hubenbecker in the back of that sled, you saw him all fired up, getting the blood flowing, trying to improve his start time, but that's disappointing. 5:31 there for a German team is not what you like to see.
A German team only to be 20th fastest in a field at 27 is shockingly slow. All right, he might be using the two-man to warm up for the four-man, but he still wants to produce the goods. Nobody goes on the ice to be average.
Yeah, exactly, and especially the Germans on a home track.
Well, 1800s behind Oscar Viessmann. He is now 2400s behind. He's stopped the rot, he's coming back a little, but there's no ice left to overturn a quarter-second disadvantage.
Yeah, it's going to be too little, too late. A little mistake out of 13 into 14, too. And he can fall back behind both Latvian sleds, and he does.
Oh, and he nearly dropped behind the French as well. Oscar's Kibermanis and Oscar's Malbardis 1-2. Max Arndt drops to third. Well, he is in front of the French, but not by much. He nearly slipped behind them. That would have been a massive scalp for Loic Kosterg. As it is, Arndt drops out of a potential top 10 spot.
Yeah, it's hard with the Germans when you just don't have a start at the top of the track, and especially this track, you can't come back from that. Here you saw him go from curve 13 into 14. Not a lot of driving mistakes, but just no speed at the top. That's fine.
Well, there is Max Arndt. A little less radical hair than we've often seen on him. No pink, no platinum in it today. Next up, talking about radical hair, it's not on the top of his head, it's on the front of his face. Justin Cripps, sporting the wild man look with Brian Barnett behind him, the first of 3 Canadian sleds in the top 10. He tied with Max Arndt in the first heat off just, what, a year and a half's driving experience at the top level?
Yep, Justin, also a team that relies on a great start time. They had a 5:13 the first 50 meters in the first heat.
I've got to say, off the start they did to get themselves into the top 10, 5th best at the start, 10th at the finish. They had a good first run. They've already rattled the wall at the beginning of the second heat, though, and that's not going to help.
Yeah, that came causing a lot of problems for a lot of drivers, and sometimes the faster you start, the harder it is to control that kink. And so, that's a game you play. Of course, you're not going to back off at all at the start. It's just a matter of controlling that the best you can.
It's a real dichotomy for the drivers. You've got to be an absolute beast for the first 35 meters, the first 2 or 3 seconds, and then you've got to be the focus of Zen calm the moment you've got your backside in the sled. It's a hard switch to throw. He's doing a good job here, just 900s back. One good corner could put him back in the lead.
600ths of a second now, slowly bringing it in.
On 28.9, not quite as quick as the Latvian sleds. He's not going to close enough. He is in third place. 700s cover the top 3. That's the sort of grouping we expect to see so often here at this Winterberg track.
Yeah, that's one sight you don't want to see when you cross the finish line and your teammates are holding 3 fingers up, meaning you cross the line, sitting in third position now with a number of sleds yet to go.
A little bit of a run for him. He found a few hundreds, but not quite as many as his rivals.
Here you can see coming out of the kink, curve 0, that sled is just kind of sliding back and forth.
Started driving after the 2010 Vancouver Games.
Pretty good between 13 and 14. Again, all those sleds are probably going to take that tap on their right side. It's a matter of keeping that sled straight going into curve 14.
Bobsleighing is bringing back the beard in a big way, isn't it? It's not just Movember, it's a big thing now. Stephen Holcomb of the USA and Stephen Langton in the BMW sled. Holcomb has won every race this year in two-man and four-man. And is about to come to an end after a 9th place first heat. You were saying to me in the break of Holkie, you didn't know what to expect, but 9th wasn't it.
Yeah, it's. I know he's a little bit frustrated probably, but there's a lot of room for improvement ahead of him. You know, he's sitting only 700ths of a second away from 8th place, and then 7th and 6th are only 500ths ahead of him there. So he's got room to grow. You know, we know he can drive well, and we know he has great equipment and you know, pretty decent push tonight.
Well, he's in with a shot of the medals, as you say, in terms of that close group. And he started quicker than his first heat, and I don't think almost anybody else has done that so far. This is looking like a tidier run. He is still in front.
Yeah, that lead is extending now, and this is great to see because tomorrow, the 4-man race, they're going to come tomorrow and Sunday. That's where he's looking to improve this weekend and finish with on a high note.
The worry for US fans is that the track might be getting quicker for everybody, of course, and so he's benefiting from that, but the others might benefit more. 56.70, quicker than his first run. And that puts him in the lead by 11/100ths of a second. Will it be enough to get to the medals? Seems a little unlikely. Crashed, of course, in training in Night Train 2, the 4-man sled. Night Train 1 was crashed the previous day by Nick Cunningham as well.
Yeah, not the best of luck we've had on this track so far, but again, we're positive. We have a good attitude coming into this track. You know, Holkie, I don't know if we've ever medaled in two-man on this track. I think we finished in 5th place last year and maybe a couple years prior to that. But you know, right now, he's got a smile on his face, trying to move up a few spots, maybe crack into the top 6. Well, go home with an award.
On this track, anything can happen. Next up for Germany, Thomas Florschutz, Kevin Kuska. 8th place for them. Again, a long way down. No German sleds in the top 6 after the first heat in Germany. Almost inconceivable.
It's always fun to watch Kevin Kuska. You know, he can push the sled about the speed of sound sometimes. Just a beast behind there, a 5:17 start there.
Now, of course, no German sleds apart from Francesco Friedrich. I forgot him. He's in 3rd place after the first heat. 900ths up on Stephen Holcomb. 5:17, good start for Florschutz.
Holcomb had a pretty good start velocity. They were able to extend their lead a little bit. See now, Florschutz's lead is only 800ths of a second right now. Starting to lose a little bit. It was at 900ths.
Track announcer getting the crowd fired up as the gap starts to grow once more, using all his experience of this track in changeable conditions. He's reading it well, Thomas Florschutz. That's what experience gives. Doesn't mean you know which corner comes next. It means you react better to the ice. 1:29.1, that's enough. That's a full 1/10 of a second quicker than his first heat. Some of that is track, some of that is experience in dealing with the track.
Yeah, he had a really tough time between curves 9 and 10 and 11 in the first heat. Here he cleaned that up quite a bit. He was able to negotiate, and that's where he extended his lead over Holcomb a little bit from about 1100ths up to that 1900ths of a second difference.
Well, Florschutz confirms that Holcomb's winning streak is over. 7 race wins from the start of the season from Stephen Holcomb in 2- and 4-man. And that has come to an end, at least temporarily. Got to start another one as soon as one ends.
And again, that's about as good as we're going to see curve 13 into 14 in this 2-man race.
Let's
take
get
that hit, but again, the sled is straight.
Florschutz going to be 36 years old in Sochi. 36.
You say that like that's old.
Well, yeah, not from my viewpoint, but from the guys behind him, I guess it kind of is. Next up for Canada, Chris Spring, Jesse Lumsden. Spring now, the de facto Canada 1 driver. Last Olympic Games, he was sliding for Australia. Born in Darwin in the Northern Territories, moved to Canada where he now lives, and is having a really strong start to the season.
5:15 start time. That's a great start by Jesse Lumsden. You know, Jesse was the world push champion at the beginning of the season of the individual push athlete competition. Did really well there.
That's a great thing to have back as well. It's great to recognize the input that you push athletes have in the teams, and it's great bragging rights as well to start an Olympic season knowing you're the fastest man in spikes is fantastic.
Oh yeah, Jesse will tell you about how good he is all night long. He's a great competitor and a lot of fun, but
wow, this is another tight heat.
Time.
Yeah,
losing time.
600s up to 900s back, and this is where Florschutz's experience of the German track has started to pay off. Oh, and Spring really rattles the wall. You saw the fans, heard that loud and clear.
Yeah, he's going to fall back a few places.
Yeah.
3 places at least.
Yeah. So that could drop him out of the top 10. Rough ride in the back for Jesse Lumsden. Well, good to the Kreisel. Below that, it all got away from him. I think the track is still changing. I think they found it very different from the first heat.
Chris just not sure what happened. It wasn't a horrible run, not a lot of major mistakes, but...
Well, till here. Watch the fan on the left. Sees it, but bam, hears it. Oh, yeah, that's got a smart. You know how that feels, right?
Yep, it's a good shot right to the hip.
Backseat passenger, hip, shoulders, knees and toes, all feel that. Lumsden trying to rival Justin Cripps in the face fungus stakes.
Yeah, you can see Chris is asking right now. I said, where did I lose my time? What happened? He's just not sure where the mistakes were made.
Where should I have steered? Maybe it's canny runner choice, knowing the weather forecast.
Could be, you know, we knew the temperatures were going to be warm, but when that sun comes down, the sun sets here close to 5 o'clock and it gets cold rather quickly.
Alexander Zubkov, Russia's #1, lying in 6th place after the first of our 2 heats here in Winterberg, Germany. But this is a test run. This is a test run for him and Alexei Voyevoda. For a number of years, he was his success talisman on the back of the sled. They fell out. Voyevoda's been pushing everybody and a donkey for the last couple of years, but now they are back together for the first time. This might be the Olympic dream.
Yeah, but a 5:20 and a 5:21 2-star times in this race, that's not going to cut it at the Olympics, that's for sure. If this team is going to be the team that wins a medal in the 2-man race for Russia, they're going to have to improve somewhere there because you can see they lost that lead already. The time is even so far. It's going to take a great drive to step ahead of Florschuitz.
Yes, it is. It's going to take more than that at the start. You're right. They've got to find at least a 10th, maybe more, to be equal with the quickest pushers.
But having a great run, and he is extending that lead now, 0.09 of a second. Good speed at the bottom. Good
job over Florschuitz as well, who's got the experience of this track. 1:29.8, very quick. Takes the lead, 56.51. Again, a little quicker than his first heat. Alexander Zubkov of Russia has the lead here in Winterberg with 5 sleds still to come. Well, watch these 2 guys at the start. They're not the quickest yet. Not a comfy load for Zubkov either, Kurt Tomasevich.
Yeah, it's not comfortable getting into that sled at all, let alone at top speed. You know, there's not very much padding, if any padding at all, so you're jumping into a fiberglass and aluminum. Not an easy thing to do.
Welcome back to Winterberg in Germany as we have 5 sleds left to go. Second and deciding heat of the 4th World Cup race of the season for the 2-man bobsleigh. Lyndon Rush and Neville Wright, 7th quickest in the start, 4th quickest down the track. Really top draw drive from Lyndon Rush, trying to re-establish himself as Canada's #1 here.
And Neville Wright trying to prove something here. You know, a lot of times Lyndon will use Lascelles Brown on the back of the sled. A little skid coming out of the grooves there. Lyndon handles it pretty well, but not the best kink we've seen. It drifted to the right out of the kink.
You know, these guys have been a little overshadowed, haven't they, by Chris Spring and Jesse Lumsden this year. And Lumsden, the #1 Canadian brakeman, world champion at the push, has helped Chris Spring take that Canada 1 spot, but looks like this might be the day that Lyndon Rush bids to get it back. 300s only behind Alexander Zubkov, the race leader. And these guys from 2nd to 8th were so tight, all their little groups.
Yep, this is going to be hard now. He's 1100s back right now. He could fall back 3, maybe even 4 spots if he's not careful.
He's dropped to third place at the moment. Still third, behind Chris Spring, potentially. No, Spring's down in fifth. Don't think he's going to go that far away. It is third place, behind Zubkov and Florschutz. Zubkov and Vojevoda, they were actually chatting quite relaxed last night, watching the late practice for the women, and it looks like, yeah, they've made those bridges.
Yeah, Linden had a little problem at the bottom, he's saying there, but still kept his composure and handled it fairly well. But again, this might have been a little mistake that cost him some of that speed. The sled drifts a little bit in the kink and then comes to his right.
Look at the track, it's so glossy. We're so unused to seeing that. Normally it's pretty matte like this, but at the top it looks like you've got a special effect on it.
Yeah, maybe the weather's just a little bit different up there, and it's humid, and that could be just a glaze of water running down the track.
There's your race leader, Alexander Zubkov and Alexei Vojevoda from Thomas Florschutz and Lyndon Rush. Ready to go. Tied for fourth place after the first heat with Lyndon Rush of Canada, Nick Cunningham and Justin Olsen of the USA. Cunningham crashed in the four-man. Only his fourth trip, I think, ever in Night Train 1. Crashed in early week practice. Let's see if he can produce a medal in the two-man.
You have to put practice light years behind you. Just focus on the present. Good start time here, 5:21. That's exactly what they had in the first heat.
Well, they were only 700ths away from a medal in Heat 1, and that's the kind of target you like to dangle right in front of a driver. Come on, 700ths, blink of an eye, and you're in the medals.
Cunningham's in the presence of great drivers here. He's battling with Zubkov right now, a little bit behind him, but also just ahead of Florschutz. There's pilots with much more experience than what Nick has. So he's going to try to use what little experience he has and combine it with a decent start time and great equipment here to hopefully work his way into the medals.
Well, he's got a world champion and a former race winner here in front of him, as well as his teammate, Corey Butler, who lies second. Cunningham at the moment has gone from second at the start down to seventh. This is a horrible run for Nick Cunningham.
Yeah, he's going to be pretty disappointed with this. He was in a great position after the first heat. He fell way back. 16th fastest so far this heat.
Well, again, we talked about the way the track potentially could be changing. The sun has dropped, the air temperature's coming down, the refrigeration is still on, the ice nature changes. For some athletes, maybe the track is coming to their runner choice. For others, and potentially Cunningham could be one of those, it's going away from you.
Yeah, that's it's not a great thing to see. You can see he was a little bit late on the curve here from 11 into 12. That whole combination combined for the second slowest heat we've seen here in the second run.
Tough times for Nick Cunningham. 3 to go. Junior and senior two-man world champion Francesco Friedrich and Yannis Becker. They had some epic starts last year. They did not have a great start in the first heat, only 9th fastest, but a great drive to put them third in the medals. Can they stay there ahead of Zubkov of Russia?
I do think, though, on any other track, they're going to have to drop that start time. 5:19 the first heat, 5:15 the second heat. So that is dropping their start time. They're on the right path if they want to continue to medal on other tracks.
They're only 800ths away from the fastest starter of all. Now, can he drive himself away from the Russians? 1700ths up.
German on a German track, you would expect that lead to grow, but Zubkov, he's been on this track probably almost as much as a lot of these young German pilots have.
I would think a lot more times than Friedrich, probably, in the years he's been competing compared to the years that Friedrich has been driving. Francesco only started driving in 2010.
Wow, what a run Zubkov must have had. He's already ahead of Friedrich and the German team right now.
And again, and that's horrible. We saw how well Florschutz went. I wonder whether there's a different runner choice between the two sleds. Florschutz came to the track, or the track came to him. Maybe Friedrichs are going away. You watch a NASCAR Winston Cup race or a Cup race, and you hear them talking all the time. Sun on the track, cloud cover, different temperature, changes the nature of the track, changes the way the car works. It's got to be the same here. All right, they're only running for under a minute.
Yeah, it would be awesome if we could all compete at exactly the same time with exactly the same ice conditions, but of course that's not...
That's kind of a wide track.
Yeah, probably very dangerous. But here, the highest probably we've seen from curve 13 into 14. and hits that wall pretty early, and that cost him a lot of speed.
Yeah. Christoph Lange, the coach, just shaking his head there. We've got Andre Lange in the German TV booth next to us. I wonder what he made of that run. What do drivers who know this track so intimately, who have won on it so many times, what do they feel might be happening to the weather? And whatever their instinct is that even right? We don't know. The chemistry here is so complex and so unmonitored. What we do know is that Corey Butner and Chuck Berkeley are in second spot after the first heat. What a chance they've got to take another World Cup medal.
Now the first step here is they need to drop that start time. They pushed a 5:24 in the first heat, was only the 16th fastest. And now a 5:19 here, so they do drop it 0.05 of a second, so that's a great sign.
Well, that's much more the start that they wanted.
Now they're probably going to drop here into the red for the first half of the track eventually here. But with Corey's speed at the bottom half of the track, the way his equipment is running and his drive lines, hopefully they'll be able to come back into the green.
Well, listen, let's flag up what a great job our current leader, Alexander Zubkov, did. 6th after the first heat off only the 10th best start. He drove himself into medal contention. He already is sealed in for at least a bronze. Can he move up to the silver medal? 0.04 of a second. Skid for Corey Butner.
Still green so far, only 0.04 of a second. Now 1/100th of a second.
129.6 is very good speed. This will be down to the 100th. Does he get the green? No! But he's in the medals. He will take at least a bronze. 1/100th of a second. Zubkov from 6th place. Well, we said before the start of the run, Kurt Tomasevich, how tight it was, how close the grouping was. We're seeing the results of that.
Definitely. That was a great sign to see them drop that start time so well. Corey, just a couple mistakes down at the bottom. And those are the mistakes that Zubkov did not make.
And again, Corey Butner has put himself into medal contention. He is the top US athlete here in Winterberg.
Very high in curve 9-10, almost get the runners on the groove, but yeah, huge smile knowing that you can medal on this track in 2-man.
No kidding, and Chuck Berkeley, well done. So it's Zubkov and Vojevoda that lead. Only Hefty and Baumann can stop a return from the first heat of Lazarus-like proportions. Zubkov from 6th is the leader, but Hefty was 3,300ths clear of anyone in heat 1.
He pushed a 5:09 in the first heat, and if it's anywhere near that again, I think he can go to a state of comatose and still come away with the lead.
Well, we've seen him crash off the finish curve to win races before. He's won multiple times on this Winterberg track in the 2-man competition. His lead as he sits down over half a second.
Wow, 6,100ths of a second ahead on this track is unheard of.
We saw this in the men's skeleton race with Martin Stukors, led by 3,300ths after the first heat, drove away to over a second of an advantage. Hefty surely can't do that, but he's 6/10ths up on Zubkov. Like you say, he can go to sleep now, and it should take itself down to victory.
Not the speed that Zubkov had, he's actually losing his lead a little bit, but it's gigantic. There's no way that Hefty will lose this as long as he keeps all 4 runners on the ice.
Well, now, what does this tell us about potential champions in Sochi? 4,600ths is the margin of victory. Bernd Hefty doesn't need to crash to win it. He strokes away from the field here in Winterberg to claim his first World Cup gold medal of the season, and the first by anybody in men's bobsleigh who is not named Stephen Holcomb. Well, all good runs come to an end. Holke's was an epic start to the season. Eventually, somebody might have challenged him. And here in Winterberg, Bernd Hefty claims yet another 2-man gold medal for Switzerland.
Hefty and Alex, 2 nice guys, and if you do have to see that streak come to an end, these guys would be all right to see that go to.
Corey Butner and Charles Berkeley make sure that there is a US sled on the podium again here in Winterberg. Well, Hefty and Baumann look pretty happy with that, and so they should. Second fastest in the first heat of their start, third fastest in the second heat, and a comfortable margin of victory. Well, we spent the last year and a half, maybe, talking up the Latvians with their super starts as the major threat to the Russians. Maybe the Swiss are now standing up and waving their flag and going, hey, guys, forget about us? Yeah, maybe we should look a little wider. Beat Hefti, the winner, from Alexei Voivoda and Alexander Zubkov back together. The dream team working well. Russia in the silver medal position. Cory Buttner and Charles Barkley in third spot, ahead of Thomas Florschutz and Francesco Friedrich. Germany finishing out of the medals here at home in Winterberg. Well, lots to talk about there, Kurt Tomasevich. First of all, from your US team perspective, Cory Buttner, Charles Barkley on the podium, third spot, two really strong runs here. Yeah, and actually we kind of expected that. The way practice was going for Cory, it's no surprise that he was in medal contention, and you know, he was in second place after the first run, fell back to third place here, but yeah, it's not really a surprise after we saw what he could do during the week of training. Stephen Holcomb, two pretty decent runs. Second one perhaps a little better, moved himself up to seventh. But for Nick Cunningham, it all came unraveled in that second run, dropped down to 12th. Yeah, that was a tough run to see Nick have, you know, a decent start time, but just couldn't hold that speed and just made one too many mistakes on the way down. And the Germans, fifth best start from Francesco Friedrich, eighth from Thomas Florschutz. They both finish out of the medals, fourth and fifth. That can't be pleasing Christoph Langen. Yeah, exactly, and because this is one of their home tracks, they expect to do well here. So, you know, if you're in contention at the start, you better be able to be in contention at the bottom. Well, Alexander Zubkov and Alexei Voivoda from sixth position, I'm sure they thought a medal was definitely possible. Whether they thought they'd get silver, I'm not entirely certain. But Beat Hefti and Alex Baumann, those guys, with the start they produced and the first run, the drive that Hefti produced, they had that cushion. And of course, you guys and Holke, you've had that so many times. Great first run, just gives you that little mental buffer that you can relax into the second run. And of course, relaxation is so much a part of this sport. Yeah, sometimes that's the case. Sometimes that, you know, comes back to bite you too, where you become a little bit too lazy and you can almost take a break looking ahead to four-man. But, you know, Hefti had two great runs. First fastest in the first heat, of course, and second fastest heat in the second run. But for the most part, a great day for him. Winterberg, Germany, round 5 of the two-man bobsleigh World Cup. Steve Holcomb, still our runaway World Cup leader, but the perfect score is now over. Beat Hefti has won here in Winterberg to move up into second place. Cory Buttner, third place. Alexander Zubkov, fourth. They were the other medal contenders here, placing silver Zubkov and bronze Cory Buttner. Nick Cunningham in fifth, and the best of the German sleds, Friedrich ahead of Florschutz, sixth and seventh place. So still the US sleds looking really strong, and Hefti their major rival. Well, let's get down to the finish dock with John Morgan.
As we do here in Winterberg, Germany, they always give away a big glass of Velton's beer. There's our winners.
Yes, Beat Hefti and Alex Baumann are going to have just a little sip of that. There's a four-man race on Saturday and on Sunday here. There's lots more driving still to do for Hefti, but he drove himself right into the frame here, dominated the first heat and consolidated that lead, added to it, very nearly doubled it into the second heat as he wins by 46 hundredths of a second. Coach Eric Allard on the right there, looking pretty happy with that. The Swiss looking strong. Okay, one for the record books. When was the last time a Swiss driver won an Olympic bobsleigh medal? It's been a while. Well, let's get down and hear from our top three with John Morgan.
Bronze medal position here in Winterberg, Germany. Cory Buttner, Charles Barkley. Cory, your first medal ever here in Europe. But boy, you were flying all week long in practice too.
Yeah, no, we were having good training, fast, and we're just hoping that we'd be fast on race day, and today we were. So
well, congratulations, way to kick off 2014, Charles. Great starts, and Now over to Russia, to your old partner.
Все хорошо. Все вернулось в свои места. Работаем. Есть над чем работать.
Yeah, okay.
Congratulations to the Russians. They're happy to be back together. Obviously, good luck charm. Спасибо. Now it's a normal procedure here for Team Hefty and Winterberg. This is almost like Switzerland to you.
Yeah, the whole team did a great job this week, and we are happy to win here. It's good for us to win here in Europe, so we hope we can do a good race tomorrow and Sunday.
What a great start to the 2014 season. Congratulations. Gentlemen, this way, Corey.
Yet another two-man bobsleigh win in Winterberg. He is perhaps more successful here than at home in Switzerland, at least in World Cup racing. FIBT Hefty wins. Alexander Zubkov second. Corey Butner lives up to the promise of training with a medal here, his first in World Cup competition in Europe. Well, my thanks to John Morgan. Thanks too to Kurt Tomasevich. We'll see you in action, Kurt, in the four-man races Saturday and Sunday. Lots more to go here in a busy Winterberg weekend. Thanks for joining us this Friday in Germany. We'll be back with Saturday's action, women and four-mans, and the women and four-man on Sunday too. See you then.